All right. Nancy Pelosi's husband has been attacked in his home, in their home, in California by a man whose name I find kind of funny because apparently it's DePape or DePape, but it definitely looks like DePape to me. I don't know why that makes me laugh, but I think a guy walking around saying, "Hey, what's your name?" DePape. I think that's funny. Um, but Pelosi's husband was attacked after this guy broke in through the back door and was looking for Nancy Pelosi, and apparently wasn't the brightest cookie in the box because Nancy Pelosi, being Speaker of the House, A, has a security detail, so what the fuck was he going to do anyway? And B, her schedule is public record. It's very easy to figure out when she is or is not in California. And of course, she was not in California. She was in D.C. at the time because Congress is in session. But regardless, he broke in and threatened old man Pelosi with a hammer looking for Nancy Pelosi. And police were called, and when police showed up, apparently old man Pelosi was putting up a decent fight because I guess the two of them are wrestling over a hammer, but not before Mr. DePape did some damage and gave him a skull fracture and several bruises and some contusions and stuff like that. He went to the hospital and needed to have some surgery. So I'm no fan of Nancy Pelosi. I think that she has been in Congress way too long. I think she needs to leave, and I think her tenure in Congress has been particularly uneventful as far as doing anything good for the American people. Best I can say about her is anytime she's been in power, the wheels on the bus have not fallen off. The wheels on the bus, she's always retaken power when the wheels on the bus have already started to fall off or fallen off completely, and the Democrats have at least managed to stem the bleeding most of the time. However, that's the best I can say about her because honestly, she is milk toast. But I do not think that in any capacity, no matter how good or bad a political figure is, that it is good to attempt an assassination upon them. I do not think this is good. It's I know some people out there that are like, yeah, fuck those guys. Fuck everybody that's in the government currently making all of these mistakes that make a bunch of people's lives miserable and ruining things about the world. And like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but at the same time, I'm always a person that has understood that the world generally gets better over time, and it generally doesn't get better faster by blowing up the systems that are already in place. It usually gets better at pretty much the same rate. Regardless of what happens. There's rare instances where things got bad really quickly, and there's rare instances where things got better really quickly. But mostly, when shit gets out of hand and governments collapse and countries disappear and whatever you want to say, fascists take over, communists take over, whatever you want to say. No, communists have never actually taken over. Communism has never actually been tried. Anytime somebody says they're communist, they're authoritarian at best and fascist at worst. But regardless, every time a government sort of switches from one type to another, or collapses, or a country disappears, or people fall into disarray, it is always worse for a little while until it gets better. Sometimes it's worse for a really long time. So I don't think that political violence is ever justified because you will just make it worse. Maybe it gets better in the future. Maybe it doesn't. The only thing that you know for sure is that if you manage to topple a government, it's going to be worse now. And the only time that it isn't worse now is when you work at a steady pace to change things in a system that already exists. And if you do that long enough, If you do that for long enough and you do it, make enough changes, you can transform one system into a completely different system, and the wheels on the bus never fall off. So, I really think that this guy going after Nancy Pelosi is a precursor to what could be something much worse. Because people doing stuff like this will always lead to more of this if the symptoms and the problems that have led to it are not properly addressed. And that is how things like fascism come to be. That is what happened in Germany. There was a rot. There was a problem in the German people and in the German government that was the Nazi Party that was clearly aiming for bad things. And nobody did much of anything about it. They just went about it like business as usual until it was over. And a lot of stupid stuff happened before the Nazi Party took over. A lot of stupid stuff. And it honestly feels like America is in the stupid stuff is starting to happen before the rise of something. I don't know what it is. It feels like it's probably going to be anti-democracy, and it's probably going to be bad. And there's a reason why I think that. And the reason is because political violence usually leads to bad outcomes. Perhaps in the long run, it ends up being a good thing, but ultimately, it's a bad thing. And the response from Fox News, which is a good barometer for how the conservatives are feeling, has been insane. Like insane. And it's I cannot handle this. So I'm gonna pull this clip because this one sort of gives away the goat on how they all feel about it and how they're all trying to spin this as like something more is going on here. So here we go.
From the LA Times right now, talking about how the rear door, that's how the assailant got in. He got in through a rear door. Sorry, I can't see that quote at the moment here. Here we go. It's up now. The quote says, when police arrived and knocked on the front door, Scott said someone inside opened the door. The officers saw Paul Pelosi and DePape, each with one hand on a single hammer. He said Scott confirmed that DePape had forced entry into a rear door of the Pelosi home. And this Scott we're referring to is the San Francisco police chief.
Right.
So the suspect accessed the rear door of the house, and there's no security. Where are the cameras? And also, what about the broken glass? What was that about? And when police came to the door, someone else opened the door. Who opened the door?
So they're trying to make this out to be basically like one of two things. One, either the house was not properly secured, so you were asking for it, which is basically the same as, yeah, but what was she wearing? When, you talk about like rape and stuff, it's like, no, it's like just because somebody's house is potentially, not as secure as it could be, doesn't mean that the person deserved it, regardless of what their family's status is or power in the world is. It doesn't matter. Okay, you never blame somebody regardless of their choices, regardless of their choices on how they secure their home, for somebody breaking into their home and for somebody breaking into their home and assaulting them. Yeah, okay, sure. They could have put steel bars on the windows. They could have had snipers on the roof. The Pelosi family is plenty rich enough to afford that. But, like, come on. Like, no. You don't do that. But let's assume for a second that that's not what they're saying. And what they're actually saying is there's something more going on here. There's a question about why this guy would do this. Well, why do you like? It's not that hard to figure out. It's politically motivated. Like, no, you can't just based off of him breaking in and screaming, "Where's Nancy?" and attacking her husband with a hammer, that like he's like talking on the phone with Donald Trump about attacking them, but you know why he's there. You know, the simplest answer is usually 9 times out of 10 the answer. And what's more likely? That there's some grand conspiracy about something going on here to drum up some publicity about God knows what. Like, what this even does politically, who knows? Drum up sympathy for Nancy Pelosi? Like, she's got a lock on her seat in California. She's not going anywhere. And even if she does lose, it's going to be to another Democrat, and then she'll just take her happy billionaire ass and retire. So, like, there's no gain for this. But they seem to think that something more is going on, or rather they're saying that something more is going on because Fox News can't figure out how to have a moment to just be human. But regardless.
What are you hearing?
You know what? Look for what's missing and what doesn't add up. Remember when we were taught who, what, why, when, where, and how? And then when you've eliminated all that is possible, whatever remains, however improbable, that might be the truth. If we did a wide shot on the house, there are high-resolution cameras on every corner of that house. That's easy to see. The glass appears to be broken outward. That's another question that needs to be answered. Police officers typically have their body cameras on, especially when entering a house like this. Where's the body cam video? Where's the security video? What type of security system? Who opened the door is someone that investigators need to talk to. And for the San Francisco Police Department and now the Capitol Hill Police and others that are involved at the federal level, these are answers that these are things that demand transparency in the reporting, because again, an assault on potentially on a member of Congress's property, on her husband, and all of this, it doesn't add up. And to Lara's point,
Okay, so again, he's trying to make the argument that the pieces of the puzzle don't add up. But if you just think about it for 1 second, the pieces of the puzzle line up perfectly fine. Why would the glass be broken out? He hit it with a hammer. Glass does not shatter like it does in the movies where all of the shards go one direction. That's not how that works. It breaks into pieces. It falls straight down. You know, maybe maybe it's a single pane with just the wood bars between it. In which case, if you shattered one, it'd shatter further down, and then you'd end up with shards falling all different directions. So there's probably glass inside the house and outside the house. Oh no, how would you explain that? There's glass inside and outside. Did somebody break in from the inside and the outside at the same time? No, it's just the way fucking glass falls. And then the other one is like, where's the footage? Where's the video camera footage? Where's the body cam footage? Where's the audio? It's like, this shit just happened. It just happened at the Speaker of the House's, the third most powerful person in the country. It just happened at her home. Do you think the police are just gonna like start dumping audio and video footage to the news immediately after? Like, no. But they're implying that something else is going on here, that like this act of political excuse me, something went straight in my mouth right there. They're acting like this act of political violence is like somehow a grander conspiracy, instead of just some dude that was indoctrinated by shit that he saw online or in the paper or saw on TV and isn't exactly mentally stable decided, you know what, I'm going to be a fucking action hero and I'm going to go take out Nancy Pelosi. And so all of these people are over here trying to make the argument that something else is going on, but then the police get a hold of Mr. DePape and they ask him some questions. And he describes the speaker as the leader of the pack of lies spread by Democrats. Well, that certainly doesn't sound like somebody who would sympathize with left-wing politics. If the speaker told the truth, DePape said, he would let her go, but if she lied, he vowed to break her kneecaps, according to the affidavit. He said he was sure that Nancy Pelosi would not have disclosed the truth. The suspect also described what would happen if he went ahead with his violent plan. DePape also later explained that by breaking Nancy's kneecaps, she would have to be wheeled into Congress, which would show other members of Congress that there were consequences to actions. Yeah. This guy right here was definitely, without a doubt, an inside operative of the Pelosi campaign. But this is why I bring up the fascism thing, because stuff like this happens. Stuff like this happens, and then Fox News turns around and justifies it immediately as something that is more than what it seems. More than right-wing politics driving people to do stupid shit. When in reality, it's just people being indoctrinated into violence. And it's different than the frustration violence that happens with like Black Lives Matter movements. I'm not endorsing any of the violence that happened during Black Lives Matter, but that violence is aimed from a place of frustration, a place of like actual hurting that these people have gone through. There are clear like targets and aims and wants and desires, and it is plain to see what is going on and why the Black Lives Matter movements got to the point that they got to. But with this right-wing politics stuff, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's nothing concrete for them to point to. They go, oh, immigrants are flooding over the border. Okay, not in anywhere near enough numbers to affect the United States economy. We have 3 or 4 times the amount of internal migration every year, because that's the concern with immigrants coming over the border in numbers that are too large. It's not, oh no, the immigrants are here. It's, oh no, the immigrants are here and they're overwhelming things. Because there's only so much you can build. There's only so many students you can put in a school. Hospitals can only take so much. Roads are only built for so many cars. Water treatment systems can only handle so many houses. So if enough immigrants come in too quickly to outpace the increase in the infrastructure available, then that's a fucking issue. But we're nowhere near that number with immigrants coming in. We're not even remotely close to hitting that number. We get more internal migration in and out of cities just from Americans moving around in America every year. So it's a mirror. People complaining about immigrants, it's smoke and it's mirrors. There's no actual effect upon anybody's life. And every single issue, if you run down the list of conservative complaints with the United States, it's all smoke and mirrors, as opposed to Black Lives Matter, where they're hard, concrete, numbers-driven things that they're upset about. And that's the big difference. That's why the response from Fox News is so potentially dangerous, because they're justifying the unjustifiable. And justifying the unjustifiable and saying that this is good is the beginning of the end. Once that becomes commonplace, once the lies, once the misunderstandings, once the unfounded fears, once the xenophobia or the homophobia or any kind of like hatred towards another group comes into the power in a country, it becomes the political norm, you're done. And we are so close to those things taking over. Because when those things become mainstream, then arguments and logic and even improvement, like even if immigrants were just completely banished from the United States, you think the hate is going to go away? No, it won't. People will just be like, we need to nuke the border so people can't come over. We've cleared all the immigrants from the country. It's just Americans that were born in America with a birth certificate from America in America anymore. All the immigrants are gone. Time to nuke the border. Like, Like, I know that's extreme, but that's a logical step down that thought train. Bad assumptions lead to people doing stupid stuff. And it just, this Pelosi, or this Nancy Pelosi attempted, I'm going to call it an attempted assassination, although the guy did say he wanted to break her kneecap, so we'll say attempted assault for a political point. The response to this from Fox News, which is the mouthpiece of the Republican Party, is just terrifying. Once you realize what the end point is of their logic, like, even, I mean, these people might not even believe what they're saying, but they're taking the money to say it. So their shame, they think that if the New World Order or the New America Order happens, where Republicans take over and get rid of democracy, they're going to have a comfy seat at the table. They're going to be rewarded for their loyalty to the Republican Party. Maybe they are actually ideological, in which case, what the fuck? How do you arrive at your positions? Because I think about stuff for 2 seconds and I'm like, okay, I don't know what you just said, but what you said was definitely stupid. So yeah, shit's getting bad, man. Shit's getting bad with the Republican Party, and Fox News is just awful, man. I know way too many people that listen to Fox News and Fox News Light channels and just take that shit as gospel, when, like, bro, just use your brain for a second. But